What's going on, guys? I'm here today with my Week 4 preview of the Minnesota Vikings and Detroit Lions divisional game in Ford Field this Sunday, and this is the first divisional game for both teams this season. The Vikings are coming in 2-1 after a very impressive win over the San Francisco 49ers, a game that many doubted them to win that game or even be competitive in it, and the Detroit Lions are coming off of a shootout loss in overtime in Tennessee against the Titans. And I think this is a very, very big game for both teams considering the weeks they had last week. The Vikings are coming off of a very good win against the 49ers, and if they win this week, they will be 3-1, still tied. They'll be at least tied for first place in the NFC North and face the Titans next week at home. Whereas the Lions, they will be 1-3 off to a very slow start, and they're going to have to regroup with that record. Although the NFC North hasn't been as good as probably people expected this year, with the Lions and Packers both only having one win on the season. And so I think the goal for both teams this week is to find their true identity. Are the Vikings actually going to be a threat in the NFC North, and are they going to contend for a wild card spot or anything? They're going to have to play well this week because they can accomplish a lot of things by winning this game. One, it'll be their first two-game winning streak. It'll be a game win on the road. It'll be showing that their win against the 49ers wasn't just a fluke if they can win this decisively, and it'll definitely help propel them going forward as they have a lesser opponent next week in Tennessee. And for Detroit, they want to show that they are still dominant and that they still have a very good offense and are a team worthy of making the postseason. And I'm expecting a good game. The Vikings haven't won a divisional game. I think they've lost their last 11 division games, and they got swept by the Lions last year, of course. And the Vikings need to come back after that win against San Francisco, and they have to play just as good against the Lions on the road. They played physical defense, they executed well on offense, they had a balanced attack, they did not give up on their running game, and it was just an overall great day for the Vikings against the Niners. But one thing I'll say is that their defense was not tested enough because the 49ers went away from their ground game. I believe Frank Gore only had 12 carries, and they didn't take any shots downfield, and so the Vikings secondary wasn't really tested. But we know that the Detroit offense is going to test them, and they'll be testing the Vikings defense with a top wide receiver in the game, Calvin Johnson. And now last year, I thought Chris Cook did a good job against Calvin Johnson for the most part. I was reading some articles that said Chris Cook gave up a touchdown to him last year, but I thought it was Cedric Griffin who actually did that. For the most part, I think that Cook did good, but he hasn't been great this season. I hope he can match the physicality that Megatron brings to the game, but I do not expect him to shut him down whatsoever. The Vikings can just try to contain Calvin Johnson, shadow him with a safety over the top, and take your chances elsewhere, because Titus Young and Nate Burleson and Brandon Pettigrew are good players, but they're not going to destroy you the way Calvin Johnson can if you do not match him up with a safety over the top along with a physical corner like Chris Cook, who is also 6'2", but still Megatron is 6'5". And that's the main concern for me being a Vikings fan. And I also wonder which safety they're going to cover over the top with him, because the Vikings have two safeties right now that are both very hard hitters. They lost Mistral Raymond last week, and so Jamarcus Sanford is in. And Sanford got beat deep a lot last season, and that's what concerns me, because either the Vikings play Harrison Smith over the top of Megatron, and that would likely keep Harrison Smith out of the box to fill in on run plays against Mikel Shore, or you have Jamarcus Sanford, who has the ability to get beat deep. But we'll see how he's improved this season. I haven't seen a lot of him in coverage. I really expected the Niners to test that last week, but apparently they didn't have any deep passes in the playbook to test the Vikings defense, but that's not going to be a problem for the Detroit Lions. They will try it, and it will be up to the Vikings to stop it and for the Vikings front four to apply pressure on Matt Stafford. He's going to be in this game, I'm assuming. He's going to be a little bit slowed down by an injury, and he's not really a mobile threat anyway, so I want to see Jeff Backus versus Jared Allen and how much they chip with Will Heller, Brandon Pettigrew, any running backs out of the backfield. They're going to have to chip Jared Allen because he's going to be hungry this game. He wants to sack Matt Stafford, but the Vikings have an overall good defensive line, and I think they're going to do a good job of getting pressure on Stafford, but it's going to be whether or not it's going to be enough to disrupt his passing game and to make Matt Stafford make mistakes, which he has been prone to do this year. He has thrown some interceptions. He cleaned it up last week against Tennessee and had a very good game, but that was also Tennessee secondary, and they did not get a lot of pressure on Stafford for most of the game. And also for Detroit last week, we finally got to see Mikel Shore, and so I went back, I watched the whole Tennessee-Detroit game, and overall my initial impressions of Mikel Shore is that he's a very good running back for this type of an offense. I think he is best off with the way the Lions like to pass the ball, spread the field out. He is a downfield, north-south runner who's going to get you positive yards and not very many negative plays, which is huge. So I think Mikel Shore is a good running back, but it's going to be up to the Lions. I think they need to set up the run by getting the pass to work. And I'll be looking for how much they throw to Calvin Johnson, and hopefully the Vikings can do their best to contain him, because he could take over this game and give the Lions a victory. But I think if the Lions have a balanced offense, or at least they can pass the ball to open up the running lanes, it'll be up to that Vikings front four to apply pressure and try to slow down the offense and try to force some turnovers if the Vikings are going to stay in this game. Because the Vikings, they've had a good offense this year, but the Lions have a lot of firepower, especially with Megatron. And I can't really assess how good the Vikings defense is against a passing offense like this, because they've only gone against Blaine Gabbert and the Jaguars, Andrew Luck in his second career game, and then last week Alex Smith, who didn't even throw the ball downfield that many times. And so the key for the Vikings in this game on defense, I would say, is to apply pressure on Stafford, try to make him make mistakes and slow down this offense so that your offense can get going, you get the ball back, and hopefully Christian Ponder can engineer some scoring drives and continues his good start to the season. And so now on the Vikings offensive side of the ball, I'm really excited this game, but I hope that they can continue to play well even on the road, because the Vikings, 1 week, I mean in past years, 1 week, they play dominant at home, just great. You think they're going to be awesome the next week. They go on the road then and lose. And the Vikings, they've struggled on the road. They don't look as good of a team. They're not as physical, not as fast. Looks like a completely different team to me. So they have to continue the success they have in the Metrodome here at Ford Field. And I think the Vikings, one thing that helps them with that is that they have a very good core of veteran leaders on this team. They have Jared Allen, Antoine Winfield, and Winfield had a speech last week that probably helped the Vikings get the right mindset for this 49ers game and to know that they had to play physical and tough football to get the victory. And they also have guys like John Sullivan, Chad Greenway, Adrian Peterson. Also, Greenway is having the best start to a season I think he's ever had. I think this is going to be the best year of his career if he keeps this up. And so the Vikings offense, what has the Vikings offense done through the first 3 weeks? They get the ball to Percy Harvin. He has 27 catches this year. He leads the NFL, and he has not yet reached the end zone, but he has still been the main focal point of this Vikings offense as Christian Ponder develops and Adrian Peterson gets closer to 100%. Now, the Vikings wide receiver core has been very depleted, but still Percy Harvin has had success because I think he is the most versatile player and one of the most dynamic players in space in the NFL, and I love him in this game against Detroit because I don't think Detroit's secondary plays physical enough. I don't think they tackle well enough. I think Percy Harvin can have a big game if they get him the ball in space, and especially because this week the Vikings finally have their deep threat back, but who knows how well he's going to play because he hasn't played since last year, obviously. He played a couple games in the preseason, but for now it remains unknown the impact that Jerome Simpson will bring to this football team. Obviously, he can stretch the field. That takes a safety out of the way, it takes a corner out of the way. That leaves Percy Harvin underneath. You have the up-and-coming second-year tight end, Kyle Rudolph. You have Christian Ponder, who's had a very good season so far, and you also have Adrian Peterson, who's getting closer to 100% and is having a good season thus far. And I want to see the Vikings continue their offensive attack this week, being balanced, running the football, not giving up on it, and I expect them to have success because their offensive line, I haven't seen a lot from the Detroit defensive line that's really impressed me. They're not getting pressure on the quarterback, and I think the Vikings offensive line can handle them because they handled the San Francisco 49ers front seven just fine. Ponder never was even sacked last week, and I think the Vikings have the opportunity to have a very big offensive day if they just execute the way they did in week 3. I mean, they wham blocked Justin Smith and took Alvin Smith out of the game. Matt Khalil was very good in that game. I think it was the best of his 3-game career so far. And with Jerome Simpson back, adds a whole new element to this Vikings offense they have not had through the first 3 weeks. But the one thing that worries me is that Christian Ponder does not have a very good deep ball. Now, you can say whatever you want about his arm strength. I'm talking about the way he throws the ball deep. He puts way too much air underneath it, and that allows defensive backs to locate the ball and to make a play on it, and that's going to cause turnovers if Christian Ponder does not place the ball correctly. He has to either overthrow the receiver if there's good coverage or throw to the sideline where only his receiver can make the play. So Ponder needs to be smart with the football continually. He does not have an interception yet this year, although there have been some passes that should have been intercepted, including one last week by Dante Whitner. But Ponder needs to take care of the football once again, establish his offense, remain balanced. Adrian Peterson, Percy Harvin, that's your playmakers right there, but also Kyle Rudolph, who is emerging and having a very good season so far, had 2 touchdowns in the red zone last week. I want to see this offense continue, and my prediction for this week is that the Minnesota Vikings get their 3rd win on the season by beating Detroit by a score of 23-20. I like Minnesota in this game because I think they can play more physical defense than the Lions can, but will the Vikings play more physical? That is the question I want to know the answer to. I think as long as the Vikings don't let Megatron take over this game on offense, the Vikings have a good enough offense to exploit the Detroit secondary and to remain balanced on offense and to put some points on the scoreboard. And I am really excited to watch this game. There's a little bit of something extra added in here. I was on Twitter earlier this week and I was talking to Bafe, and he's another director and he is a Lions fan, and he came at me with a wager and he said that the loser of this game, meaning if the Lions lose, he's a loser. If the Vikings lose, then I'm a loser. The loser has to do a video where they sing the other team's fight song, and I upped the ante and said that it had to be in a live stream. And so hopefully he is the one that has to sing come Sunday if the Vikings win. Hopefully they do. I'm really looking forward to this game. It's a big game for the Vikings, I think, and I want to see them get their third win on the season. And so, guys, leave your predictions for this game in the comment section. And thank you guys for watching. If you could leave a like, I would really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.